Welcome along. Quick preview. Just going to type out a little message here before I really get started showing you what's coming up. So over on the Mysterious Chicago Facebook page, I do live morning mini tours from somewhere around Chicago every single day. I don't really do that on Twitch or YouTube yet. We really just started restreaming over to Twitch and YouTube, so I thought I would show up a little bit of a preview of what we're going to be doing tomorrow night. Now, tomorrow is H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, for our regular Thursday night tour. H.H. Holmes is one of my areas of expertise. He's probably best known as the guy from Devil in the White City. We tend to advertise him as America's first known serial killer. Really, he wasn't even the first one in Chicago, but he is the subject of a book I put together a couple of years ago called H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, the title of our upcoming presentation. This is a massive book. The manuscript was like 800 pages, including all of the footnotes. It was the result of years and years of digging around trying to find the real story of what happened with this guy. He was a swindler first and foremost. He got sued a lot. So there's really quite a lot of stuff out there. I'll give a basic recap of what kind of guy we're talking about here. Hello to Betsy and Karen watching over there on YouTube. So, March 31st, 1893, there was this article in the Chicago Tribune called Hid in Secret Rooms. Apparently, this guy H.H. Holmes had been adding a third floor onto his building on 63rd Street in Chicago, which he was saying was going to be for a hotel space for the upcoming World's Fair that we were having here in town. Now, the building was very cheaply constructed to begin with. The third floor that he added was only slightly better than a papier-mâché facade. Really, it never functioned as a hotel. He never really intended it to. He had figured out early on that you can make a lot more money pretending to operate a hotel than actually operating a hotel. So he had gone around to all the furniture dealers and all of the hardware dealers and the crockery dealers and the mattress dealers, all the people you would need to see before starting a hotel, and said, hey, I'm starting a hotel. Why don't you sell me all of your stuff on credit? Then once things get rolling, I will pay you back. And everybody was eager to get rich off of the World's Fair in Chicago, so they were being entirely too free with their credit. And then instead of paying them back, or instead of even using it to furnish the place, he was hiding it in secret rooms around the place until he could sell it for cash. Now, about 6 weeks before the fair was supposed to open, the Toby Furniture Company figured out what was going on. This made the news. It was about a year and a half later, that Holmes was arrested in Philadelphia. Well, arrested in Boston and taken to Philadelphia for having faked his best friend's death. The story was that Holmes had faked his friend's death. His friend was off in hiding someplace. The whole thing was just a big swindle to get money out of the insurance company. Later, it would turn out that Holmes had not only killed the guy, but also killed a couple of his daughters and one of his sons, all in order to cover up his tracks. So after this story came out, he became one of the most famous people anywhere for a while there, and stories about this building he had back in Chicago that was full of hidden rooms and secret passages got wilder and wilder and wilder. Then in the 1940s, people started saying that he may have killed as many as 200 people. And then by the early 20th century, people were using that as just the starting place. He definitely killed 200 people. Around Halloween, it can go up into the thousands. So I spent years researching this guy, going through things like the legal archives. Let me zip back here a little ways. So spent a lot of time in the microfilm room. There were a lot of newspapers covering Holmes in great detail, especially in Chicago and Philadelphia. Things that are not really digitized. You still have to go to the microfilm room to get them. They're not quite as useful, though, sometimes in putting together his tracks in Chicago as what you can find in the legal archives. Now, the legal archives, if you can find the cases, and he usually had somebody else's name on top of the paperwork, so it's a bit of a trick, but you can see here he was sued by Frederick Schultz, a mattress company. E. Smith, that was a guy who loaned him money to add the third floor. French and Potter was the crockery company. But sometimes there's just like an envelope with a couple of summonses in the remaining stuff. Other times, it's these crumbling old piles of Victorian paperwork. And sometimes it's a real trick trying to figure out what they say. Like this one, it took me a while, but it finally turns out that this was when he was first operating in Chicago, he got a whole bunch of stuff that was supposed to be used for a barber shop in a drugstore that he was operating. But then when he didn't pay for it, the guy tried to repossess but didn't go through all the proper channels. This is one of the suits that he actually won. Then in another one of the boxes, I found the architect's original diagram for the first floor front of the building that he was building at 63rd and Wallace, the one that we now came to refer to as the Murder Castle. But there's a lot of stuff about this that just became an urban legend over the years. One of my favorite examples is just about every book about Holmes today says that when he first moved to Chicago, he got a job working in Dr. Holton's pharmacy, where poor old Mrs. Holton was desperately trying to run the place herself while her husband, the doctor, was slowly dying of cancer upstairs. So we didn't really know too much about this when I first started looking it up. There were some city directories establishing that Dr. Holton was a real person, Dr. E.S. Holton, but I couldn't really find anything about this. There was a period in the 1890s when neighbors were accusing Holmes of murdering anybody they hadn't seen in a couple of weeks. A few people talked about Mrs. Dr. Holton, but nobody mentioned anything about her being missing. The story is always that they disappeared and Holmes told everybody that they went off to California or something. So it took a while to try to figure out who this Dr. Holton really was. Finally found this National Medical Directory, and this one was digitized. If it wasn't, it would have been like the size of a phone book, and I probably never would have found it. But it finally gave the first name. It turned out that Dr. Holton's name was Dr. Elizabeth Sarah Holton. So the doctor was a woman. What? And it turns out Dr. Holton was not an old woman at all. She was a young doctor, not an old man at all. Her husband had some kind of job on the railway. She was only a couple of years older than Holmes. She had been at the University of Michigan about a year before he was there. And they both survived, both Dr. Holton and her husband. Survived well into the 20th century. They are buried not far away from where the castle stood, over here at Oakwood Cemetery, just across from the Jewish section where the Mysterious Chicago group is going to be doing a cleanup effort this October. So here it is, Dr. E.S. Holton, lived till 1933, so Holmes died in 1896, so he is off the hook for that one. Here's my selfie at their graves. So this is just sort of a teaser for tomorrow night, Thursday, April 22nd, here in Chicago time, 8 p.m., we'll be live here on YouTube. We'll be live over on Twitch. We will be live most especially on the Mysterious Chicago Facebook page, where we have been doing full-length tours and presentations every Thursday night and every Sunday morning for more than a year now. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. I just thought I'd give Twitch and YouTube a preview of what we've been doing here. So, hey, Molly. Hey, Kirk. Hey, Todd. Hey, Bill. Good to see everybody again. I'm Adam Selzer from Mysterious Chicago Tours, and I'll see you tomorrow night.